reason that we experience pain is not because our body is hurting, it's because our brain gets a signal that our body has a problem. And then what happens when somebody has like a surgery or traumatic brain injury now, the brain doesn't shut off that signal. And it does it because of brainwave frequency. So I'm going to teach you a little bit about that. So I'm going to teach you a little bit about light, sound, and vibration, not just about light. But light's important too. But when you combine them all, because we're full sensory beings, the people don't go out and buy big black and white televisions. They go out and buy color televisions. They don't like AM radios. They like stereo. So we want to get as much as we can into everything. So I'm going to kind of share that with you. So I like to share that my mission is to improve the quality of life through proven neuroscience. So we are constantly researching. You'll see a slide we have. Duke University, has anybody here ever heard about it? I know I saw an NC State person. Duke University is 1% owner of our company. And the reason they are is because we work with the college on campus to bring down stress of the students. If you can imagine, I'm going to show you the slide, what we do with it, but you can imagine you're the valedictorian of your school, you go to Duke and you find out there's 6,000 other people just as smart as you. It's kind of frightening. You think you're the superstar and you get there. That happened to me just at regular college. But there's things like that happen. So also my mission, just so you know, a long time ago, because some of this work is hard. I mean, there's easy money and there's hard money. And when you have somebody that has a traumatic brain injury or a problem like that, it can be rather difficult. So you've got to kind of think about it. This is what helps me. I believe that service to humanity is service to divinity. When somebody shows up, they're there for you by divine appointment. So there's no mistake of them being there. And if you don't feel like you have the skill set or the ability to help them, then you should refer them out. But I believe you should believe in your heart of hearts that you can do it. All the research out there shows that you actually play a bigger role in their recovery than everything else you're doing. If you with certainty approach your treatment, it's going to affect that person because it's going to control the most powerful pharmacy on earth. That's the human brain. So as you start triggering those belief systems, there's a good book out there by a friend of mine named Bruce Lipton. He wrote a book called Biology of Belief. And I think you need to read that. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those concepts, but what you do is important, but how you do it is just as important. Okay? So when we think about this, Dr. Oz is a friend of mine as well. We do a lot of work with his nonprofit. I was just in Houston at one of his discovery days because we teach teachers and parents how to communicate. But what he says is really important, that energy medicine is very important. So does anybody in the room have lasers right now? Use lasers? Okay, because if you hear about lasers, they're really great. I'm going to teach you about low-level light therapy, not lasers. The big reason for that is lasers are regulated. Lasers also take a staff person, which means they cost you more. Even though they might only cost you $40,000 to buy, it's going to cost you a staff person that's $45,000 to $60,000, depending upon where you live. So you can do it with low-level light therapy, and Harvard has proved it. Duke is now helping us to prove it. Now I have some other research that I'm going to show you that proves. In the last talk, which was awesome, but one thing he said that was incorrect, your brain heals itself, or rebuilds itself, as I say. In fact, you can Google it. There's so much research out there. Your brain is more important than your liver. If your liver rebuilds itself, your brain will definitely rebuild itself. But it needs to have nutrients. It needs light, sound, and vibration. I'm going to show you why that is and why that works, and why the eyes are so important. And this is a group that I can actually talk about that. Most people, when I say that, when I'm talking to a chiropractic group or an MD group, or even my group of psychologists, they think I'm nuts. They just think, what do you mean the eyes do it? Because the eyes aren't just, you're not just looking at the eyes, you're looking at their brain. The eyes are brain matter. So when you say to somebody, wow, you got beautiful eyes, you're saying, wow, you got a beautiful brain. Because the eyes can show you so much about a person. And we don't do any diagnosing like you would do, but we just use that as a medium to get this into the brain, which is so important. Now, one of the things we need to know is, how do you handle stress? So I was brought up Catholic, and some of you might have had that same stress sensation. But that's not the reason I'm telling you that. But I was very happy with Sister Barbara. She liked me so well, she had me 2 years in second grade. So what I want you to do is everybody stand up. I do this because I'm going to have you stand. We're going to sit, but I promise you won't be kneeling today. Okay? So when you're standing up, what I want you to do is balance on one foot and spin the foot that's in the air in a circle. It doesn't matter. Just as you're spinning it in a circle, write your name. So you're spinning it in a circle, you write your name at the same time. And notice what happens. Okay, go ahead and sit down. Okay, so I just had you experience a little bit of stress, but just to put this into perspective, we have this incredible brain that can be broken up, cut into pieces, and we're going to go through some of those here today. But the reality is that under stress, half your brain shuts down. To put that into perspective, if the world was in crisis right now, like I just came from New Bern, North Carolina, nobody knew what my city was until this hurricane hit, right? Now everybody goes, hey, now I know where you live. You know, it's underwater, but you know, that's the way it works. And so but what happens is, let's say that the world crisis happens, half the world's computing power shuts down. That wouldn't be a good thing, would it? I mean, we'd be mobilizing all of our resources to figure out how can we keep all the computers up during crisis. Well, unfortunately, we're not trained how to do that. In fact, our school systems train us out of it because they train us to do things like write with one hand, do things like that. And when she talks about HRVs, you'll get a chance this weekend if you go to our booth. We're going to have a couple of those set up. You can have a HRV reading. And what we can show is that people who dance, people who do martial arts, people who do yoga have the best nervous systems. Now, why is that important? It's important because you have 3 brains. You don't have 2, you don't have 1. You have the nervous system, which is a brain. So if I was to ask you, how do you know you have a nervous system brain? I'd ask you, how do you open a doorknob? Does anybody know? Which way does a doorknob turn? See how she picked up her hand and did this? The rest of you just didn't want to do it. But your nervous system was going, yeah, I know. It opens both ways, by the way. It always opens toward the hinges. But our brain is so smart, when we walk up to a door, it knows, and we turn it that way. That's why if you've ever gone to a house where the person isn't really a carpenter or didn't get advice from the Ace Hardware man, their door doesn't open right. Yeah, that's a whole different strategy. I love that. One of my favorite cartoons, it says School for the Gifted, and it says pull, and he's pushing, on the door. Because we rehearse things, right? We rehearse them in our mind. But what's happening with the doorknob thing is some things we just turn over to our, if you want to call it other than conscious or subconscious, whatever part of our mind, so we can think of other things. It's said that 95% of the time we offload daily activities to our other than conscious. We learn them so well that we can forget how we learned them, and we just do them.